In this video, I'm going to be deep cleaning my grinder for the Breville Barista Express because I have really bad pressure. I'm also going to readjust the grinder because I guess right out of the box it's really not fine enough to have good pressure. So when I got this machine, the lady before me had really oily beans and the descale button came on, so I knew I needed to clean it and the water flow wasn't super good, so I took the screen off and it was so caked up. Totally cleaned that out. I used a toothbrush and some warm soapy water and that worked really well. However, my pressure actually got worse after this. The caked up gunk was making it have decent pressure, but right now it's at the pre-infusion state. So next is cleaning the grinder. This is just the guide that I'm using that literally comes with the machine. So I'm just using this to tear it apart, clean it out, and put it back together. Gonna go ahead and unlock this and dump the beans out so that we can get started on that, and we'll just put those beans in a container. And I'm just digging these out because I guess I'm frugal. And then we'll go ahead and put the bean hopper back on so that we can just grind out the rest of the beans in there. You have to have it on to be able to use the grinder. So now that that's back on, we'll just go ahead and push the grinder to go ahead, and you can listen to it when it's cleared out. And so I just went ahead and stopped it because I could hear that it was empty. Now we can officially unlock this and take the bean hopper off to get started. And so this has never been cleaned. I mean, you can tell how nasty this is. I thought this was just stuck. Nope, it was that gunked up. Yeah, you can see how nasty that is. The top burr really wasn't that bad, but deep in there was pretty nasty. Yeah, all that black stuff usually is what the really oily beans will do. So just go ahead and vacuum this. I'm using my household vacuum, but I made sure to clean off the tip that I was using because I don't want that stuff touching where my beans are going, if that makes sense. Now we're just gonna use a 10mm socket to take off that nut, and it's really not on there too tight, so we can just loosen up the rest of it. And then I'm going to go ahead and put that in a container so I don't lose it. That's very important. A lot of these pieces are really tiny. Then the book says to set it all the way to coarse, so that's what I'm doing, just setting my grinder to the coarsest setting. Then we're going to take out, it's called a spring washer, and set that aside. And then there's just a regular flat washer that we'll take out. If you have a magnetic tool, that would help out a lot in this situation. Some of these pieces are kind of hard to get out, and I struggled with some of them. This is the lower burr, and it looks pretty good. Now this is the really nasty part. That's the fan. It is so caked up, it's disgusting. I had a hard time getting this out, and I saw a video where this guy literally vacuumed it out to like suck it out, and I would not recommend that because there is a felt washer and another flat washer under there that could just so easily get sucked up. My heart sank. I thought, well, crap, I'm gonna have to dig through my vacuum, but it did work, but I again wouldn't recommend it. I'd probably just use like a magnet tool if you have it. But you can see how caked up this is. It's disgusting. It's just coming off in chunks. Yeah, this really needed to be cleaned out. If your machine gets super oily and gunky, it's just not gonna, your grinder's just not gonna stay put really, and that was happening. My grinder was kind of just changing size on its own. That was the felt washer. It's kind of a unique piece, so you want to be very careful with that, not to stretch it out or anything when you're removing it. This is the last flat washer that I needed to get out, and it was kind of stuck in there. I was having a heck of a time, so I ended up just making my own magnetic tool. I used a magnet and duct tape and put it on the end of a knife, and it worked out really well. Kind of wish I did that sooner. So now I'm just going to go in and use the brush that comes with the machine and kind of loosen up some of the grime in there, and then we'll go ahead and use the vacuum one more time to clean out some of that. And then I'm going in with a paper towel because I could just still see a little bit of gunk in there, and I thought this would wipe it up a little bit better than that brush would. And yeah, you can still see some of the gunk. So did that a little bit more, and since we have it all open, I just want to make sure that we're getting it nice and clean. One more vacuum. Now we'll go on to washing these parts. I really wouldn't recommend washing anything besides this lower burr and the fan. The lower burr is just a solid piece of metal, so there's really not a lot of space for water to get stuck in there. But this fan, there actually are quite a bit of crevices, so I don't love the idea of submerging this, but it was so dirty that it just kind of needed to be done. I'm just doing it in a little container with soapy warm water. Don't do this over the sink, because if you lose any of these pieces, it's just gonna suck. This is the upper burr, and I was thinking about submerging it, but I see all these little crevices in the plastic, and I'm like, well, that's not going to dry out very easily. So I decided to try and just dry off the little toothbrush that I was using, and it's still a little damp, but just went ahead and kind of scrubbed it off. You could honestly probably just use a paper towel, or I would recommend using a dry brush to do that first, and then go ahead and do the lower burr and the fan. Drying these up really well is important. We don't want any moisture in there, because basically it'll just kind of gunk it up a little bit easier again if there's moisture in there. It's not going to be good for the grinder. And that looks pretty good to me. So I'm going to spend a lot of time drying this fan in particular. I was just kind of hitting it up against my palm to make sure that I was getting all the little water droplets out of the crevices. And it did take a while. It probably took the longest amount of time, was just drying this little piece. This didn't take too long. There were just a couple of little crevices that needed to be dried out. And I did put them in order of how they go into the machine. It was just kind of helpful for me. So now, since it's all opened up, we're going to adjust the burrs, so that way it's going to be finer. Right now they put it at a 6, and I guess a lot of people are like, it just shouldn't ever be at a 6. It just can't get fine enough to get good espresso and good pressure for the machine. A lot of people recommend putting it at a 3, so that's what I'm going to do. You just pop this wire off of the upper burr, and then you literally just twist it over. And this was actually kind of gunky too, so I went ahead and moved that to a 3, and then all you do is just pop that wire back in. And then we're just going to reassemble the grinder first with that little felt piece. When I was washing, I was very careful not to get that wet as well. Then that was just the flat washer. And then we're going to put the fan on. It goes shiny side up. Make sure that that's pressed in there pretty well. And then we're going to put in the lower burr, and it has 2 little divots that are going to line up with that fan, and you'll feel it just kind of fall into place. And then we have the smaller flat washer, and then we'll have the spring washer. And then we have the nut to put on top. So I'm just going to tighten this by my hand at first, as tight as I can. And then I'm going to go in with my tool, and I'm just going to do about a 1/4 turn, because this really doesn't need to be ridiculously tight. And then we'll just put in that upper burr and twist it, lock it into place. And then the book recommends that you set it back to a 5 to get started, but I did that and I found that it was actually too fine for my machine since we adjusted it all the way to a 3 from a 6. Then we're going to put in our bean hopper, add some beans, and we're just going to see if my pressure is decent now. Again, after adjusting the burrs, you're, obviously going to have to dial in the espresso again. Look at that. It's a Christmas miracle. Decent pressure, problem solved. Hopefully it's as simple as this for your machine if you're struggling with pressure or have really nasty watery shots, because it worked for me. Thanks for watching.